I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Good morning, everybody. Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Welcome to another episode. Today we have a very special guest here from the other side of the world, Randal Lyons. Randal's from Canada, and I haven't been to Canada yet, and I will get there one day. But yeah, I know it's a very beautiful place, and I believe Randal's got his wonderful story. I don't know a lot about him. This is a conversation about two guys who love helping people, who try to help people in recovery, who have their own stories, have our own journeys. But the bottom line is our motivation for me is to carry a message that you don't have to suffer in silence and you don't have to suffer alone, you know. So yeah, welcome to The Truth About Addiction, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you, Ron. And what a wonderful message that is. Indeed, I'm right there with you.
So basically, you had your own demons that you...
I like how you said that in past tense. Who knows if they're still lurking, right? Yeah.
Oh, they're only, they're only a few hideaways away, but it's like any demon, if we feed it, it will grow.
Bingo. I love that language. Absolutely.
I have a story about an old Indian chief talking to the children about the white wolf and the black wolf, that were on his shoulders. And the grandson said after the talk, "Grandpa, which wolf would win the fight?" He said, "Whichever one I fed." And that's been how my life has been my whole life. If I fed the evil grew. If I fed the good grew, And yeah, I'm very blessed to have an incredible life that I have made many mistakes, but I've also done a lot of good things.
Feeding the black and the white wolf, that everybody kind of claims ownership of that story, I've noticed.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, or has their own version of it. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah, mine's an old Indian chief. I could change it to an old Aboriginal chief because I'm Australian.
Exactly. That's what I was waiting for. There must be an Aboriginal story like that out there too. And it should be, because, one of the things that I believe is that in addiction, we have these universal truths and we also have very personal truths. So I actually use that story to explore either a particular client, or I like doing groups, because in groups you get a good conversation going. And usually what I like to do is throw in a concept like the black wolf and the white wolf, and then kind of step out of the way and watch people fight it out, because that's how we figure things out, is either listening to people and agreeing with them, or they make it clear to us that, oh, that's why I disagree. So is the white wolf and the black wolf real? Are they spirits? Are they, what are you actually feeding them with? Is it an energy? Is it a spiritual concept? Is it a psychological concept? So for me, what a wonderful place to start, Ron. That story, and that's really one of the triages that I do when speaking with people is, finding the right language. Because if I'm speaking to somebody who wants to use a medicine of spirituality in their recovery, and I'm saying, nope, the black wolf and the white wolf, they are psychological concepts, they are repositories of archetypal energy, then I've lost that person.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So what an auspicious place to start. And that's a canine, but I got a feline sitting on my lap here for whatever reason. When she sees me going to Zoom and I start talking, she kind of sit on my lap.
I have two of them that will come prancing around here very soon. I just got out of the bath and I had my cat standing on the end of the bath. They sit at the top of the bath with me while I'm in the bath.
How do they do that? It's such a precarious little ledge, right? And they're able to do that. And my guess is they're like most cats. A universal truth is they don't like water, but they're curious enough to see what the heck you're doing in there.
Mine are a bit weird. They actually like water.
See?
Yeah.
There's the personal part of it.
A bit like their owner, a little bit different, So, Randal, where did it all start for you, my friend? You grew up in America?
I'm a New Yorker.
Damn it.
I'm born and raised in New York. Yeah. Listening to you do a New York accent would probably be like you listening to me try to do an Australian accent.
I lived in New York. I lived there 30 years ago
Did you really?
for a whole 8 weeks.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe I owe you money or maybe you owe me money for some reason.
I was clean. I was clean then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then we
yeah.
probably didn't run into each other 30 years ago now.
I was doing meetings at what do they call it again? Oh man, down there in the village, Greenwich Village.
Sure. Yeah.
I was doing meetings down there at that little. They had a meeting place that went 24 hours a day.
They had a few of them.
Yeah.
Phoenix House was one back in those days. I got dropped off at it at one point, but actually 30 years ago. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. You don't have hair. I have plenty of grays. I was still using. I'm coming up on my 29th anniversary, July 17th.
Beautiful. July 17th?
Okay. July 17th.
Wow, how wonderful.
And yeah, so back then, actually I was in LA and I already moved to LA. So, but yeah, I'm born and raised in New York. I love New York. New York's my home, but yeah, it's not the same for good or for worse, however you look at it. And it's like one of those things. When you go back home, there's a certain feeling there.
Yeah.
But it's just changed so much that I took my son about 10 years ago. He's now 23, 24. I took him to Times Square and we just did everything pretty much spontaneously. And it was about 1:00 in the morning. And, going to Times Square at 1:00 in the morning. Well, I used to do that.
Yeah.
And now it's like Disneyland. We bought a skateboard and a t-shirt, and that's not what I was doing years ago at 1:00 in the morning. But anyway, I'm a 70s and an 80s kind of guy, and played rock and roll music and did the obligatory. Well, LA's the scene. So in 1985, me and a couple of knuckleheads got into a car that cost $200. We called it the prayer because when you got in it, you just prayed you were going to make it to wherever you're going.
Yeah.
And this beautiful East Coast rot all over it. We lost tires consistently. One time, one just fell off while we were driving. Just there's 100 stories in that car, the prayer. But we made it to LA. The first day there, to find rock and roll stardom and take care of all of our problems. The if only I had that, then everything will be better syndrome.
Mm.
And yeah, the first day there, we met some people. They invited us into their one-room apartment, and we lived there for a few months. And I can say that I got off the ride, and one of my friends moved out there with two friends. One friend moved back to New York, pretty much almost immediately OD'd. The other friend stayed there, and he is still with those people from 1985 that he moved out there with. He's now the tour manager. I don't like dropping names, but they're still on tour. They're still a world famous rock and roll band and still doing the thing. And he's got even more years sobriety on me. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, I lived in LA. I lived in LA. I have an American ex-wife. So I grew up in Sunset Boulevard.
Get out of here. What years were you there?
And I was in there my daughter was born in 95. So I was there from 94 right through to 2002, basically, off and on.
Oh,
and
wow.
I hung out with a guy called Johnny Colt. He's from the Black Crowes, the bass guitarist.
There you go.
Yeah. He got into recovery.
Did you have anything to do with that?
I may have, but he
may have.
He got into yoga first. He got into yoga and he was touring with the Crows, and I was backstage with him, and the brothers were in another room doing whatever they do. And I was in the other room doing yoga with Johnny, saying, man, you're going to have to leave this band, And he left the band, and he's been clean ever since. He's been clean.
That's
now.
that's a beautiful story and a
Good human
painful
being.
one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you, slippery people, places, and things. It's
Yeah,
like
man.
if you really want to make that change,
Yeah. You have to change
that
everything.
you're giving me goose pimples. I was already clean by that time, but that was 94. You know, that realization. I didn't have somebody like you saying, hey, you know, making it as clear as that, but it became apparent that I was going to have to get out.
Yeah, he knew
And
it. Yeah.
but what, I mean, it's like a marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. A really destructive, horrible relationship, but the sex is always great afterwards. You know, it was one of them
Yeah, you
relationships.
remember it.
Yeah, it was one of them relationships where, you know, it was so intense and so crazy, but afterwards, when you said you loved each other, you really meant it.
Yeah.
For that moment. For that moment. And then what you did last year comes back on you. That same tape that comes back. Remember what you said last year when you screwed that other chick? That same crazy madness comes back into that relationship that I had with heroin. Heroin was my drug of choice, my drug of no choice, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, but it's such an insidious, seductive, horrible thing, this addiction, that I believe I'm a lucky one. I come into recovery in 1981, relapsed in 85 for 7 months, and have been clean ever since the 3rd of March, 1986. And yeah. And like I read something that you wrote, I went to a 12-step program, but then there was so much more I needed to do. That wasn't enough for me. I had too much damage. I had too many other issues. That wasn't just a matter of walking in and going, oh, okay, I've surrendered. I found a higher power. Now I've handed my will and my life over. Oh, it's okay. Everything's wonderful. That wasn't me. That wasn't my story. My story that I had to go deeper. I went to India.
I saw that. I'd love to, you know, find a little bit more about, you know, that search. I think so many of us are in that kind of search.
I'm
And
still
my guess is that you got a little bit of it from India.
Then I went to India. I went to the ashrams, and I've been to Israel, walked the path of Jesus. I've read the Quran. Oh man, I've gone into Buddhism. I've read the Bible, and you know what I found? Everything I'm looking for is inside of me. That's what I found. I'm 68 years of age, coming up to 69, been in recovery since 1981, and I searched the world looking for what was already inside of me. And now I have a contentment. And that's what we never had as a using drug addict, or I don't even like using the word drug addict, as a drug abuser. I believe I was an addict long before I ever picked up a drug.
Yeah.
I had these defects of character, or these shortcomings, or these other words that I try not to use too many of the words that associated with the 12-step programs, because it sounds a little bit copycatish, but they say it so well that sometimes I have to use them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that? Sometimes it's like,
I know exactly what you mean.
you know, because the reality is, I like what you said before, everyone's an individual. Every client I use, if I can't relate to them, I lose them. So I have to be humble and open and honest and reliable and congruent and consistent and thorough to open myself up to believe in whatever they believe in until I believe it's detrimental to them. Then I'll intervene and say, excuse me, stop. Is this a positive or a negative that you're going to? If it's a negative, then I say, okay, we need to reassess your belief systems, because my concept of a male was completely wrong growing up. My dad was a gangster. So I believed the man was a hard guy, you know, carried a gun. The bitch says something, you give her a smack across the back of the head with the hand, you know. The dinner's not on the table, she gets a slap for that too. You know, that's how my father treated my mother. So by the time I'm 17, 18, I'm thinking, The girls got to get the slap. The guy across the road, if he looks at me, what are you looking at, motherfucker? You know, just wank. So delusionally dishonest. I've just written a book called Born into the Lie of Crime. It says life, but the F fades out and it just says the lie. Born into the lie.
I love that.
Of crime. Yeah, so that gets released next month. I'll let you know when it comes out. I'll get you a copy for it. But
absolutely, that'd be great.
You know, and so for my recovery, I want to hear about your recovery. My recovery's been a transition of learning and growing and making mistakes, and then learning from those mistakes, and then continuing on to another path. You know, but what really interests me, you've gone into medicine, the Chinese medicine, which I think is a wonderful thing. I think it's incredibly. I think I need to go and see somebody, and this may be a catalyst to what our conversations about today. That's going to push me back towards some holistic medicine, because I've been sick for a long time, and I need to.
Oh well, I'm sure we can help in some kind of way.
Yeah. So your story goes: you go to LA, you start taking drugs.
Yeah, it started long before that. It just hit high gear. We just moved into the passing lane when we hit LA.
Yeah, right.
Oh. You know, you said so many things, and I'm trying to hang on to them and listen at the same time and circle back to them, because what you're saying really resonates with me on so many different levels. And but I'll continue. So in LA and with Chinese medicine, what happened is when I got off the fast moving train of my friends who were shooting up to the cosmos, going very fast and making it famous, and you're either on or you're off. And I was like, I'm getting off. And I found a Chinese man to start learning from, and it just seemed like a good idea. So what I was doing at the time to fill in those other hours, because all my friends were gone, like you were saying with that earlier example with Johnny Colt there, that, you know, it's like, well, who am I now?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Because that's part of my identity. It's a big chunk of my identity. If I'm not that, then who am I? So luckily for me, by the time I actually had to finally make that choice, I already was studying with this Chinese man for about 6 years, who was basically keeping me alive. And, you know, I'd see him and we do Tai Chi, Qigong, Kung Fu, and he would teach me the basics of Chinese medicine. And, you know, he'd be like, you know, I'm Italian. I got to use my hands. Sorry for anybody listening, right? It's like, you know, you come in down here and then you leave here every time I see you, and then you go back out and then you go back down here, and then you come in and we try to make you here. Why don't you come in here? And then when you leave, you can go up here. And it's like, oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah, well, we'll consider that some other time. So by the time I had to make that decision of, okay, no, this time I really mean it, I'm really going to get clean, I don't have anything else. I don't know who I am. Probably, you know, that idea of what you were just describing of, you know, I'm a gangster. This is my idea of a man. Well, if I'm not that man, then who am I? And what is my heart? I hear you talk about, you know, that distance between the head and the heart. And that's exactly what I ran into. And that's exactly what my experience of many of the people who were a little behind us on the path run into too. And that's one of the most scariest things, is that dissolution of ego, that dissolution of identity. Who am I if I'm not that? I have no idea. And well, the good news is, you know, and like you said earlier, this was one of the things, is that idea of listening to somebody else. And one of my sayings that you echoed was, it doesn't matter what I believe. I believe that I have to attune my belief to what you believe, to find your language so that we can find the right medicine, because different languages use different medicines. And so for me, this idea of Chinese medicine, it was like, well, I guess I have to give it a try. I'm going to have to, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it, especially in addiction, right? We don't do anything half-assed.
Yeah.
So I jumped in and I went to school so I can get one of those degrees and licensure and all that. But at the same time, I am deeply indebted to Wang Yu. Daniel Wang is his English name. And yeah, I won't say too much about his story because he's one of those people that when he's been attributed to some of the visiting Chinese wushu kung fu teams, not everybody goes back to China. And, so, I don't want to say anything, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So he likes to keep a low profile, but it, the real deal saved my life.
Yeah.
And that was half of it. And the other half was spirituality and that search that you talked about. And at the same time, and let me throw it back to you by asking this question. So by going to India, looking at Buddhism, going to Jerusalem, boy, that sounds like a great walk. That's definitely on the bucket list. By doing all of these outward journeys and seeing all that, and then learning that it was inside here, was it a rediscovery of what was inside here? In other words, was it like a recognition of what you always had, so to speak?
Yeah, it was an acceptance of the truth. The truth was always there. The truth has been there my whole life. Even when I was sitting in a police station being questioned, and I was like, I got nothing to say, I'm a tough guy, I got tattoos, motherfucker, all that rubbish. Always inside, I was a scared little boy. Now, the most dangerous person in the world is someone who's full of fear. And the second most dangerous person in the world is a person who has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So being an addict, I had no self-worth. And being so confused about my upbringing, I had no empathy or compassion for another human being. So I became a very dangerous human being. But the most person I was dangerous to was to myself, because I had no care factor. I had no care factor and a distorted belief system that gangsters had a code of ethics, that we were brothers, that we were, when you go to prison, they'll look after your family. They'll go and screw your girl. They'll go and steal your dope where you had it buried. They'll borrow your gun and go and shoot somebody with your gun. There's only one truth in this world, I believe, and that's a divine higher power, as he may express himself in your life. There has to be a loving God in my life. And I still don't know to this day how to name him. But I don't think it matters. I don't believe it really matters about the name. I've got this crazy belief system. I'm old. In the old days, they used to have switchboards, somebody ring up, the one, Mr. Johnson, they'd pull out a cord and they'd poke it into a plug, like there's a cord for Mrs. Johnson. I believe there's a switchboard and there's only one higher power. They go, hey, they want Allah. Yeah, put it through. Hey, Allah here. Yeah, they want Jesus. Yeah, put it through, I think there's so much emphasis placed on who it is and not what it is. And I believe what it is love, understanding, and forgiveness. And I think John Lennon said it best. All we need is love. Love of oneself, love of one's neighbor, love of one's actions, love of one's thoughts. Because as well as 90% of the people in this world that the thing that we're treating is self-mutilation of thought. The human mind is turned upon us. And a lot of people believe their own thoughts. And that's why people self-harm. That's why people take drugs. That's why people harm other people, because they listen to these crazy thoughts that I am a little bit believe that it's our upbringing, but it's also social media, TVs, movies. Quentin Tarantino's got a lot to answer for. I love his movies, but he's got a lot to answer for. Do you know how many people walk around with that stupid tattoo up their neck? like George Clooney had. He was a rapist murderer, and they're all got this tattoo on their neck. Like, guys, do you miss the significance of this whole movie, what it was about? It wasn't about having a tattoo up your neck to say, oh, I'm scary. You know, most people with tattoos on their face and their hands are afraid, and they're trying to push you away. That's why they got them, to scare you, to keep you away because of their fears.
Indeed.
You know, today tattoos have changed a lot, but when I got tattoos, you're either a criminal or a cop or a soldier. You know, these days everybody's got them and they're fashionable and they're cool. They weren't fashionable and cool. They said, you know, stay away.
Exactly.
Danger, stranger danger, stay away. I will cause you great harm if you come near me. And that's why we got them, was because we were afraid. You know, and the opposite to fear is faith. So once I became a faithful person, I no longer had to be a feared person or a fearful person. I accepted that there was a power greater than myself who loved me, understood me, and forgave me. What a wonderful feeling. What a magnificent feeling. I had a dream when I relapsed in 1986. I think it was the 1st of March. And I was on 120 mil of methadone. And you know, that's a lot of methadone to try to blockade me off the heroin.
Yeah.
And I'd been around NA for 5 years at that time. And I went back to the psychiatrist and I had a dream. I'll tell you the dream. This is a true story. I've told this dream a lot in the last couple of years. I never told it for over 35 years. I dreamt that I died. And because of our belief in our doctrines and our upbringings, of course, you know, I'm going upwards towards some place and I'm going to meet the maker, and I'm full of fear and I'm justifying all my actions, all my crimes and that. And as I get to the top of this place, this pearly gates, there's a guy there with a beard. I don't know who he is, didn't introduce himself. And he smiled. And I said to him, listen, man, before we start, those people I shot, they were gangsters. And he smiled. I said, most of the institutions I robbed, they were financial institutions or government owned, you know. And he smiled. I said, and most of the people I harmed are other people who are causing harm. And he smiled. Then he looked at me and he went real cold and he said, you don't get it, do you, Ron? And I remember that fear, you know, that fear when you're in trouble. He said, you committed the greatest sin known to man. And I went frozen cold. My whole body just freaked out. And I remember that pause, and he said, you wasted the gift of life. And I was like, boom, boom. I came back. I come off 120 mil a day in cold turkey, and I've been clean ever since. Nearly 37 and a half years. That freaked me out. The greatest sin that I committed was the gift of life. I'd wasted the gift of life. And I realized that I had a purpose, and I started coming back and helping people. And I've been helping people ever since, you know. And I believe that is my gift, and that is my purpose, and that is my I want to leave a legacy. I don't want to be infamous. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be anybody. I just want to be someone whose parents go, wow, that guy's a really nice guy. Not, don't bring that guy back to our house. Because I was the first guy for many, many years. You know, growing up, that's who I was. I was that guy. Don't bring him back to our house. He's trouble, that boy. And now I have parents who ring me up and tell me they love me. I've got posters on my wall. One guy up there says, he's like one of the most famous footballers in Australia. He's got up there, he's got, to Ronnie, thank you for saving so many lives. And then he's got his name, and it's a poster of him winning all these awards for playing football. Not like NFL, but his Aussie rules. And, you know, that's a really nice thing to have on my wall. You know, I'd never had stuff like that, you know, like where people are telling me, thank you. And that's why I talk about motivation. And that's why I was really happy to have you come on the show, because I believe, just from what I've read off you and I've picked up from you, that you have a really good heart. And that's what it's all about. It's got to be. You can't do this job for the money. You'll never make any money off this job. No, this is not a job for the money. This is something that's far deeper, far more rewarding than a physical, financial. We all need money to live. You know, you can't say to the bank, oh, I want to move into that house across the road. That looks like a really nice house. Do you mind if we just live there for 40 years and we won't pay you any money? That's not going to happen, you know. But, you know, what rewards me is carrying the message that, you know, you don't have to suffer alone. There is ways out. And I want to hear about what your teachings are. You're teaching a lot of really beautiful stuff that's becoming popular now, but I guess you've been doing this quite a while.
Indeed. And it's all inside you. I got to say, I love so much of what you just said. And, you know, before we came on, we were talking about the pictures behind you and art and how you love collecting the art. And you were talking about your gift and purpose and this idea of expression of heart. And even that idea, I love that. I got that image now of the switchboard operator. What do you want to call him? Okay, Johnson, Allah, whatever you got.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've got all these images swimming around in my head, and based upon what you just said, and so much of it, again, I'll use the word resonates, because I love music and the idea of harmony and resonance. And when we are giving off, when we're in fear and we want to give off an image, however that is expressed, whether it's a tattoo or whether it's through actions or whether it's through, you know, an inflection or heck, even a look, right?
Yeah.
Just boom, stay away. It's the opposite of connection and love. And it's, when you said that dream, you know, how that resonated with me was I got that same message, not necessarily the same words, but, you know, it's like, oh, Randy, you've been clean so long, you know, boom. And there was that moment and you never did it again. And I go, yeah, but, you know, I first got dropped off at Phoenix House in the upper part of Manhattan, where I used to get things. And in 1981 also, where it worked for 3 months, but that was a long time between 81 and 94. And so I bounced off the bottom quite a bit, but the message on that last day almost drove the car off the Santa Monica Pier. Thank God it wasn't almost. It's, I'm wasting time. You've wasted so much time and you've only got this one life with this one amount of time, and that existential pain of it's a waste. And that it's that same message that you got. Maybe if I had gotten it clearer in a dream, right? But no, I needed to, you know, have it pounded in until it brought itself into clarity for me. And I find that to be a pretty common theme, in that people often have their own way of describing whatever that existential pain is. Often, sure, it's an experience of maybe getting arrested, maybe getting a report from the doctor, maybe getting the ultimatum from the spouse, or, you know, maybe that is the inspiring incident, but behind it is the pain. And it's like, wow, maybe there is another way. And that expression of the gift, some people paint, some people, you know, sing, some people. And for me, what's coming alive for me these days, and what I want to move myself into with this idea of shamanism, is that we all have this indigenous soul, as one of my teachers says. We all have that, which translates perfectly to what you said, this truth inside of us. Yeah. The truth. We all have this truth. How we express this truth, how we recognize this truth. What do you want to call it? What plug do I put it into the switchboard with? Okay, great. Find your way of expressing it, calling it, and then how does that manifest? And So what I'm coming back to is these bigger existential questions of, we've become so dependent upon machines instead of tools. In other words, when we had tools, we were all crafts people. We made something that was tangible to contribute to our community. But now, because we've replaced that with money, and I listened to this wonderful podcast by an Amish person. I'm like, holy moly, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like their idea of community, it's like they haven't changed. They haven't adopted the replacement of human connection, human creation, the human expression of somebody's gift for, well, I don't have to make music because I can buy it. I don't have to, wash my toilet because I can pay somebody to do it. But these are all gifts, and the recognition of that and the recognition of how somebody is doing it is, it's the beauty. And maybe that's the gift you and I have. It's like, well, okay, maybe painting's not going to be there for me, but damn it, there's nothing like seeing the light bulb go off in somebody's head. And maybe it's the last light bulb, maybe it's the first light bulb, maybe I'm one of the light bulbs along the way. Who knows? Maybe they need to bounce off the bottom a couple more times. Hopefully not. But what a beautiful, and by beautiful, I mean as in art. And maybe that's our gift. Maybe that's what we're returning from our external journeys, whether it's Chinese medicine or going to India or Jerusalem. The idea of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. It's like, nope, you end up in the same spot. It was inside me all the time.
Yep.
I just had to click my heels, the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, but we have to go through these trials and tribulations to learn who we are. After that moment of, crap, who am I if I don't do all those other things? So now we know. Now we've got a gift to bring back. So that was my spiel and ramble based upon what you said that inspired me. So thank you.
I love it. I love it. So you're running a program now, helping people find. See, I think our world is in a bit of a revolution at the moment, especially with the internet. We can reach more people, and we're starting to talk about, sound meditation, talking about sound healing, breath work. I have all these friends now starting to say to me, oh, we're doing breath work. And I go, oh, that's cool. I did rebirthing 35 years ago. You heard about breath work? Yeah, it might be similar to what we did 35 years ago, And I love all that stuff, but it's coming back. It's becoming fashionable again, Vespa motor scooters are now fashionable again. That's all we had when I was a kid, Now they're fashionable. But I like seeing that because that stuff worked.
Yes, it did.
It comes back. That's why it comes back. It comes back because it worked, and we get away from it. We get lost, and then it comes back. It's the same as this healing, the therapeutic value that we have with each other because we have lived experience. I would never have got clean listening to people with only certificates.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't work for me.
Me neither. Bingo.
My psychiatrist told me in 1985, I'll put your methadone up higher. Your recovery program doesn't work. I wish I knew who he was so I could go back and see him and say, no, But I don't have to say no, because I have the no inside. I proved that he was wrong. His medical certificates and his 25 years of practicing as a psychiatrist, writing massive amounts of methadone, which were killing people, and liquid handcuffs, I call them, and completely ruining people's lives. Don't get me wrong, not everybody. Some people probably got clean because of it, but not me. Not me.
And not most of the people I know either.
Yeah, not me. And I can only talk from my experience. I'm not a textbook talk about something that I heard or something that someone said. If I can't say I seen it, I smelled it, I tasted it, I never ate it. So I don't have an opinion on the taste of it, because as we know, both of us, I really love what you said in the beginning. If we can't communicate with our clients, we've lost them. Trust is one of the hardest elements for a person who's had an addiction or an affliction problem to find. Trust in another human being, because we don't trust people. It's so hard to earn somebody's trust and so easy to lose it.
Bingo. Ain't that true?
I run my whole program on a thing called the 8 demands. It's openness, acceptance, reliability, congruence, thoroughness, consistency, respect, and honesty. And on the bottom of that, I have action. And it says, take the I out of the middle and I act on these demands 100% to the best of my ability. I've been running those demands for 42 years now. They are so beautiful. And they're not my demands. They're just words that I've learned to put into my life. And I run them through my companies. I run them through my relationship with my wife, my children, through everybody. And I find that I have a really good lifestyle and I have a really good set of principles that people trust me because I'm congruent. I don't ask you to do something I don't do. I'm reliable. I say, if you're on time, you're late. My kids laugh. I have 40-year-old twin daughters, I'm like that. Clock's on, like we're having dinner at 7 o'clock. You'll be here at 10 to 7. They're quite funny. If I'm running late for any reason, my phone will ring. It's now 7 o'clock, Dad. I go, piss off, yeah. But they're the gifts of recovery. My children can have a joke with me. I could never do something like that with my father.
Right.
I was full of fear. I would have been beaten. How dare you disrespect me? Disrespect you? How do you disrespect somebody by having a joke with them? I think, one of the greatest gifts I've been given is being a dad.
Absolutely.
My recovery comes first because I'm not a dad without my recovery. But the gifts I've been given is being a husband and a father. I don't cheat on my wife. It's really funny, because I grew up a gangster, and gangsters, we all know, are notorious, have the mistresses and all that crap. Now today, if I'm in business with people, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they tell me they cheat on their wife, I won't do business with them. And they go, what? Because, I've still got all the tattoos and I wear the gold and all the bullshit. They go, well, what do you mean? I say, mate, if you can rip off the person you're in bed with, the person you're in a relationship with, the person you're closest to, what the hell will you do to me?
Yep.
If you can lie and cheat to her, what the hell can you do to me? And, people, I'm quite notorious for that in our circle of friends, that if somebody's cheating, man, don't tell me about it, because you ain't going to get kudos from me. You're going to get, man, you're a piece of crap. How can I trust you?
There's that trust. Yeah. It's so hard to earn it and so easy to lose it.
Yeah. I look after different clients, and if they start talking to me about being dishonest or about being, sneaky, I say, why would you throw away a diamond and pick up a stone? What sense does that make? What sense does it you throw away a diamond and pick up a stone? Come on, guys, there's a fine line between insanity, and it's a choice. We have choices. That's the nice part about, I found, for my recoveries today, I have choices. My brain no longer controls me. It still sneaks in and tries to have a little go. As we said before, forever. We know this is forever. We know that this sneaky little disease or affliction or whatever you want to call it will always come around the corner and go, but no one knows. I know.
Right.
When I'm driving down the street and I take a candy wrapper out and it's all sticky and I'm in my new car and I've got nowhere to put it, no one's going to know if I throw it out the window. Yes, they do. I do.
That's right.
So I've got to roll it up and put it in the car, in the seat beside the car. Big deal. But years ago, I just would have thrown that wrapper out the window, man, and let it flick away. That's my principle. It got flicked out the window. Because after I flick that away, then I might think, I can have a drink. I can have a smoke. I can cheat on my wife. I can do a little bit of a crime here and there. And the rot starts, the deterioration starts, and it's like white ants. this disease is like a white ant. It just slowly eats away. And before you realize there's no foundation. What happens when there's no foundation?
It's so easy to logically go into the brain and go, Ron, what are you talking about? Flicking a wrapper out the window? What does that got to do with me having another fill in the blank? It ain't got nothing to do with it. Yeah. And I love the way you explain that. And I still go back to the last job I had, which was 1986, when I worked for somebody. And the manager sat me down and goes, Randy, you're late every single day, and I give you another chance. Why are you in Los Angeles? Oh, I'm hearing music. I'm going to music school. Stop talking. Randy, I'm going to say that you are late for every single one of your classes in music school. And I went, wow, how did you know that? You're like Merlin, you're so wise. And he's like, no, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah. And he was the first person to say that to me. And it just blew my mind. And yes, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Amen. So, it's funny, but you brought up that if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. I thought about when I should log into the Zoom call, and I go, well, I spent years in Los Angeles, which would mean that I would log in at about 10 after, but I am from New York. So, I am, as soon as that clock hits 00, I'm going to be on time. Yeah, but showing up early, that's kind of Midwestern.
I'm a Midwestern sort of kind of guy. I'm nearly at Seattle, actually.
All right. That love the Pacific Northwest. I was up in Victoria in Canada for a while there, and it's beautiful. Absolutely.
I have a young friend over there in Virginia, right at the top near Canada, right at the top. Is it Virginia?
No.
He's a lovely young guy, right at the very top, on top of New York, right up near the top of
Vermont.
Vermont, sorry. Yeah,
yes, Vermont is gorgeous.
I've been on the other side. I chased a girl all the way over to Washington, Seattle. That was pretty too over there. Yeah. I flew all the way from, when you first get clean and you start to get these impulses, and I flew from LA to New York. And as I was booking my flight in LA to go to New York, this beautiful girl at American Express, United Airlines, oh, I love your accent. And I'm like, I love your accent too, So I'm recovering, we're flirting. And she goes, do you want to meet up in Chicago? And I go, yeah, that'd be cool. So I fly to New York. I get off the plane in New York. She's crying. I can't get on a flight because she's going to come, because she works for the airlines, get a free flight. So I'm like, I'll fly to Seattle. I didn't know Seattle was another 8 hours back the way I just came. I've never met this girl. I've never seen her. It was a long time before telephones, before mobile phones and photos. And I flew all the way back, the red eye, all night, back over to Seattle to meet up with this girl. Some crazy early recovery stuff, man. I loved it.
The impulse.
Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere, It's like if we don't deal with these things, I had one of the first people, again, not the certificate, but the real life guys. It's like, Randy, it's like ketchup in a hamburger. It's like you keep squeezing, it's got to come out the sides. Exactly. And I was like, I that's yin and yang. I've never heard anybody explain Chinese medicine as good as the hamburger and ketchup.
Right. Yeah, man. I've had a beautiful experience through recovery. I made some mistakes, and there's some things I'm not proud of, but there's a lot of things I am proud of. The thing I'm most proud of is that one day at a time I've remained clean. And that was the only thing I wanted when I first ever stopped taking drugs, was to stay clean. And then I wanted clarity, and then I wanted contentment. And it's been a long journey to get contentment. Somebody asked me the other day, are you content? And I said, yeah, I really am. I really am. And that's like, to me, that's the grand slam. Yeah. My first company was called Next.
That's the opposite of contentment.
Exactly. And I actually had those number plates on my motor vehicle for 20 years, Next. And I got rid of it because nothing was ever good enough.
Right.
I mean, I was married 5 times in recovery, and I have all these children and all these companies, but I was never satisfied. I remember I drove into Florida and bought a brand new Corvette in 1999, brand spanking new yellow Corvette convertible in Orlando, Florida. Drove out of the car yard, went down the road about 200 meters, and I just remembered, I thought, I've got no emotion.
Wow.
Not one bit of gratitude, man. Emotionally and spiritually bankrupt in 13 years clean. And I went back to prison 3 years later.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I went to prison 16 years clean. And that was another awakening, a rude awakening. It wasn't a spiritual awakening.
Indeed.
Because everybody in prison was in active addiction those days.
Right.
Because when I went to prison as a young boy, nobody was a drug addict. I was the odd man out. Went back to prison in 2002. I was the odd man out.
How bizarre. What an experience.
And I went there for 8 years. I went there for a long time. And I started a rehab in prison. First man in Australian history to be able to start his own rehab in prison. We had 30 inmates living in one unit, and I just ran meetings, did yoga with them, taught them about food. I have a letter from the general manager of the prison saying that anyone's life's in good hands. It's in my hands. It's crazy.
I told my wife that. I go, this is the best recommendation letter I've ever seen. It's from the warden. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Like, forget a previous employer.
Yeah, this is from the warden, this is from the head, this is the boss man, saying that I'm the best guy that he's ever had, and I don't take much credit for it. I was just a messenger. And I believe that my higher power thought I was strong enough to go into the pit and to carry the message. And a lot of people got clean because of that. A lot of people.
You're hitting my heart, man. That is I can't picture myself doing that.
Yeah.
I don't see myself having that kind of grit. So, hats off to you. That is just what a beautiful message you carry. And that is carried. I see it in you. We have the word gravitas. You talked about the certificates before, and here's a funny one. I forgot the name of the movie. It was Garden State, I think, and it was written by a guy whose father was a psychologist, and it was a bit of a true story, to where he's sitting across the desk from the psychologist, and it was completely dysfunctional, to where the psychologist was actually his father's friend. So he's seeing this psychologist who is his father. The whole thing is incestuous. It's dysfunctional, and he's like coming of age now, and he's like, I think I have to recommend you to somebody different. And the guy's sitting there, and this is the scene that just stays with me. And I'll bet anything that this is based on truth. The guy has so many certificates behind him on the wall. The whole wall is filled up. And then the camera pans up that he's so filled with himself that there's more certificates on the ceiling.
No. Yeah.
But there's no substance.
Yeah.
There's no substance. And so that's part of that. We buy it so we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't got that.
Yeah.
You have gravitas. And there's something about being in your presence, listening to you, seeing you just say your story, say whatever's on your mind. And it's like, there's something about this guy. He's got something I want that I'm sure people gravitate towards you.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm blessed. Thank you for that. But yeah, I try to really be honest. I used to have a standard joke. I was the most honest criminal in Australia.
It's a good one, man. Did you come up with that?
Yeah. I was the most honest criminal in Australia. I couldn't even lie at my own court case. That's why I got found guilty. I couldn't even lie in my own trial.
Did you hesitate? Did you sit in that moment and go, ugh?
I did. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I was the worst liar. And I was such a good liar when I was a young fella.
Yeah.
Once you get clean and once you have an understanding of self and that thing we talked about, the truth, our own truth, you can't con a con and you can't con yourself.
Yeah.
I have no excuses anymore. I cannot justify doing things against my own personal principles and pretending I don't know. I don't have that denial anymore. I just don't have it, I actually remember when it first started going away, I started to miss it. Because who am I? Who am I? If I'm not Ron the criminal, who am I?
Yeah.
Because that's who I was born. That's who I was brought up. My father was a gangster. All my uncles were gangsters. Like our whole family, my families are gangsters. They're not, some guys that had a bad trot. No, everybody that came to our house was a gangster. Everybody that in my story, there's probably 50 people mentioned, 40 of them are murderers. And all of them are dead and being killed by each other or by the cops or by themselves.
Yeah.
There's probably 10 guys in my book that were all killed by the cops. Because the cops were as crooked as us, they're just another. I'm sure there's good ones. I just never met them because of the side of the road I lived on. There was cops and there was cops that were trying to take the money off the crims. They weren't trying to stop the crime. They were trying to get your money too, because organised crime is big money, and we all know about the power of money and the power of greed and the power of power. Everybody wants the power, but look, I could talk to you for hours, man. It's so easy. It's so easy. It really, really, really. We'll have to do another session one day, please. I'd love to.
I would love to.
I feel like I've
Ron,
hardly even touched on you. I feel like
but we're here now. All right, I was selfish, and I'm walking away from this going, you relit part of the pilot light in my heart, being doing this for as long as I'm going to use communal language here, as long as we've been doing it.
Yeah.
I feel it's important for me to not only get inspired by the people who are new in recovery and seeing that shininess and their light bulbs go off, but also speaking to people like you and, well, who am I at this stage? How am I going to come up with something new? And you did that for me today. You just by your presence and just by what you're saying.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
A lot of people used to say to me, Randy, it gets better. And I used to think at 10 years clean, it can't get any better. At 20 years clean, it can't get any better. 30 years clean, it can't get any better. I'm coming up to 38 years clean. It's still getting better.
Isn't that something?
Man, nothing got better. Nothing got better in my life. Everything got worse. I got a joke, the only thing I ever finished was a jail sentence. It was the only thing I ever finished before I got clean. I never finished anything. Now, if I tell you I'm going to do something, man, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be done. And it's going to be done 100% to the best of my ability. I don't cut corners. I don't bullshit. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't steal. And that's emotionally, physically, or time. I don't steal nothing from anybody. And it's so nice. It's so wonderful to be talking to a like-minded person because, I know that you're doing good stuff. And I really want to know more about your stuff. So we're going to have to come back and do a second one, Randy.
Whenever you like, Ron. No,
we're going to have to, man, because I want to hear about what you're doing. And I want you to talk about what you're doing because I think the greater audience needs to hear it. And because you're on the internet, they can jump on and do your program. See, my program can be done anywhere around the world. That is jump because I do on Zoom. My programs run on Zoom. My clients get on an hour every, I do a 30-day program. It's 30 days straight. It's pretty intense. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. And I don't sort of put up with much crap. It's like, man, some of them I give them, the Princess Award. The other guys, I say to them, you're just a spoiled little brat, you're 40 years of age, get off your mum's tit and start being a man. But they need to hear that. I know which clients need to hear that, and other clients need to be cuddled. And they need their back patted and say, man, it's okay. It's okay. I've got you. You've just got to be able to work out which one needs what,
Indeed.
And, look, Randy, it's been a pleasure, mate. We are going to I'll get my wife onto this. We'll do a stage 2. And, but we don't go much more than now because we lose the clients, people that are listening to it outside.
And besides, I start forgetting things after about an hour too. It's like, you'll ask me questions.
Called old age. Mate, look, thank you very much for coming on to The Truth About Addiction. What's your company called, please? Give yourself a plug.
I've got two companies. One is called Alchemist Recovery, and that's my online program. It's 1 year, well, one lesson per week per year. And then I just started a Substack called the Sober Shaman, and I'm exploring all more of the indigenous type of ways, your own indigenous soul, rediscovering the spirituality for Westerners after it's been trampled by all kinds of religious persecutions for centuries. So you can discover your own indigenous soul and your own spiritual path, finding the plugging into the switchboard, call it whatever you want, however you want to do it.
We'll come back on and we'll go through those two, my friend. We will very soon.
Appreciate it, Ron. Thank you, mate. I get to say mate.
Thanks, mate. Be safe. Cheers, brother.
Take care.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.